The doors of the Iron Horse Tavern exploded open. A 6-year-old girl in a torn pink dress stumbled inside, her face streaked with tears and dirt. "Please, save my mother," she screamed. "The bad men are hurting her." 25 leather-clad bikers froze. Pool cues stopped mid-stroke. Every eye turned to the trembling child. Their leader, Vincent "Bear" Kovacs, a 6'5" mountain of muscle with a jagged scar across his jaw, slowly rose from his seat. His dark eyes locked onto the little girl. But what would these feared outlaws do when they discovered who was hurting her mother? Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if this story touches your heart, make sure you subscribe, because what happens next will stay with you forever. The Iron Horse Tavern had seen its share of trouble over the years. Bar fights, broken bottles, the occasional showdown with rival clubs passing through Montana. But nothing had ever silenced the room like this. 25 hardened bikers stared at the little girl standing in their doorway. Her pink dress was ripped at the shoulder. Her bare feet were bleeding from running on gravel. Snot and tears mixed on her small face as she gasped for breath. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Please help my mommy." Bear felt something twist in his chest, something he hadn't felt in 30 years, not since he was 8 years old, hiding in a closet while his stepfather's belt cracked against flesh in the next room. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Bear's voice came out softer than anyone expected from a man his size. "Lily. Lily Chen. My mama's name is Sarah, and the bad man found us, and he's hurting her, and I ran as fast as I could and—" "Slow down, honey." Bear knelt down, bringing his massive frame to her eye level. Up close, he could see the terror in her dark eyes, the kind of terror that came from seeing things no child should ever see. "Where's your mama right now?" "Our apartment on Maple Creek Road, number 12. He broke the door and he grabbed her and she told me to run and find help and—" "Ghost." Bear didn't raise his voice, but his second in command was already moving. Marcus Ghost Webb pulled out his phone. Former FBI. 15 years of tracking the worst humanity had to offer before he'd walked away in disgust. His instincts were already firing. "I'm calling it in," Ghost said. "No." Bear stood up. "We go first. Call Torres on the way. Tell her we've got a domestic situation and we're responding." "Bear, if this is what I think it is, then that woman doesn't have time for us to wait for paperwork." Wrench, the club's mechanic, stepped forward. "Who's the bad man, little one? Do you know his name?" Lily nodded, her small body shaking. David Mercer. He used to be Mama's boyfriend. He hurt her before. That's why we ran away. That's why we came here." The name hit Ghost like a punch to the gut. "Bear, David Mercer, former deputy sheriff, Clayton County, Arizona. I remember the case." "What case?" "Domestic violence. Multiple complaints. All of them mysteriously dropped. Word was he had connections. Dirty connections." Bear's jaw tightened. "Then we'd better move fast." He looked around the room at his brothers. Wrench with his oil-stained hands and gentle heart. Doc, their former army medic who'd stitched up more wounds than he could count. Preacher who'd found God in prison and never stopped trying to make amends. 25 men who the world had written off as outlaws and criminals. "You all know the code," Bear said quietly. "Women and children. Always." Nobody needed to be told twice. The thunder of 25 Harley-Davidsons ripping through the quiet streets of Ridgewater was a sound the town had never heard before. Not like this. Not with purpose. Not with fury. Lily sat behind Bear on his bike, her small arms wrapped around his waist, holding on with strength that surprised him. She'd stopped crying. Her face was set with determination that broke his heart. How much further, sweetheart? 2 more blocks. The blue building. Please hurry, please. Bear pushed the throttle harder. Behind him, Ghost was already on the phone with Sheriff Margaret Torres. We've got a situation at Maple Creek Road number 12. Domestic violence in progress. Child fled to the Iron Horse for help. We're responding. Webb, you can't just... We're already there, Torres. Get your people moving. The convoy roared around the corner onto Maple Creek Road. Bear saw it immediately. The door to apartment 12 hanging off its hinges. A woman's scream cutting through the evening air. The sound of something breaking inside. Stay with the bikes, Bear ordered Lily, handing her to Doc. Whatever happens, you stay right here. But my mama! I'm going to get your mama, I promise. Bear was off his bike and moving before it fully stopped. Ghost and Wrench flanked him. The rest of the club formed a perimeter around the building. No exits. No escape. The screaming stopped. That was worse. Bear hit the broken door at full speed, shoulder first, sending it crashing inward. What he saw made his blood turn to ice. Sarah Chen was pressed against the far wall of the small living room. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. Her lip was split and swelling. Standing over her, a hunting knife in his hand, was a man Bear recognized from Ghost's description. Tall, lean, the arrogant posture of someone who'd spent years abusing power. David Mercer. Who the hell are you? David spun around the knife, coming up defensively. Your worst nightmare. Bear's voice was calm. Deadly calm. The voice he'd used in Afghanistan when everything was about to go very bad, very fast. Put the knife down. This is none of your business. This is between me and my family. We're not your family. Sarah's voice was hoarse but defiant. We were never your family. David backhanded her without looking. The crack of his palm against her face echoed through the apartment. Bear moved. 30 years of military training. 3 tours in Afghanistan. Countless bar fights and street brawls. All of it compressed into 3 seconds of controlled violence. His hand closed around David's wrist, twisting until the knife clattered to the floor. His other hand grabbed David's throat and slammed him against the wall, hard enough to crack the plaster. I said, Bear growled, his face inches from David's, put the knife down. You're making a big mistake, David choked out. Do you have any idea who I am, who my friends are? I don't care if you're friends with the president. You put your hands on a woman. You terrorized a child. In my town. Your town. David laughed, a wet, desperate sound. You're just a bunch of criminal bikers. You think anyone's going to take your word over mine? They won't have to. Ghost's voice came from the doorway. He was holding up his phone, the screen glowing in the dim room. Smile, Deputy Mercer. You're being recorded. Breaking and entering. Assault with a deadly weapon. Making threats. All of it. David's face went pale. You can't do that. That's inadmissible. You'll have nothing. Bear released David's throat and stepped back. Because you're going to jail. And when you get there, you're going to find out what happens to men who hurt women and children. Mama, Lily's voice cut through the tension. She'd broken free from Doc and was running through the broken doorway. Lily, no, stay back. But the little girl was already throwing herself into her mother's arms. Sarah collapsed to her knees, pulling her daughter close, sobbing into Lily's hair. I brought help, Mama. I brought the angels, just like you said. Bear felt something crack open inside his chest. Something he'd kept locked away for 3 decades. The sound of sirens grew closer. Sheriff Margaret Torres arrived with 4 patrol cars. She was a tall woman in her 50s, silver hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Webb, she said, approaching Ghost. You want to tell me what happened here? Little girl came into the Iron Horse asking for help. Her mother was being assaulted by her ex. We responded. Torres looked at David, who was now sitting on the curb with his hands cuffed behind his back, flanked by 2 of her deputies. "David Mercer, I've heard stories. Never thought I'd see him in my jurisdiction." "He followed them here, Sheriff." Bear stepped forward. "The woman and her daughter. They were hiding from him. He tracked them down." Torres studied Bear for a long moment. Their history was complicated. She'd arrested members of his club before, written them off as troublemakers, but she'd also seen them at community service events, at charity rides, helping elderly residents with yard work. "You know I should arrest you for interference." "Probably." "Breaking down doors. Vigilante justice." "We didn't break down any doors. That was already done when we got here." Torres almost smiled. "And the assault on Mr. Mercer. What assault? I saw him trip and fall, multiple times." Sarah Chen appeared at Bear's side, Lily still clutched in her arms. The little girl had finally stopped shaking. "Sheriff, these men saved my life. David was going to kill me. He said so. He said he'd kill me and take Lily and no one would ever find us." Torres's expression hardened. "Can you give a statement?" "I'll give you whatever you need. Names, dates, everything he ever did to me. He's not just an abuser, Sheriff. He's connected to something bigger. Drug dealers, traffickers. He bragged about it, about how protected he was." Ghost and Torres exchanged a look. "Mrs. Chen," Torres said carefully, "I'm going to need you to come down to the station. Bring your daughter. We'll get you somewhere safe and take your full statement." "I'm not going anywhere without them." Sarah nodded toward Bear and his men. "They're the only people who've ever helped us." "Ma'am, please, I've been running for 8 months. Every time I thought I was safe, he found me. These men are the first people who actually did something. Please don't take that away from me." Torres sighed. She looked at Bear. "You and your club. You're going to be involved in this whether I like it or not, aren't you? That little girl asked us for help. We're not walking away until she's safe." "That could take a while. Mercer's got connections. If what Mrs. Chen says is true, this goes beyond simple domestic violence." "Then it takes a while." As David Mercer was loaded into the back of a patrol car, he twisted around to stare at Bear through the window. "This isn't over," he mouthed. "Not even close." Bear held his gaze without blinking. No, it wasn't over. He could feel it in his bones. The same instinct that had kept him alive in Kandahar. The same warning bells that had saved his unit more times than he could count. David Mercer was just the beginning. Back at the Iron Horse Tavern, the celebration was subdued but genuine. Sarah and Lily sat at a corner booth, surrounded by bikers who looked like they could tear a man apart, but who were currently arguing over who got to bring them more apple pie. "She needs a doctor," Doc said, examining the cut on Sarah's forehead. "This might need stitches." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've got at least 2 cracked ribs, a possible concussion, and that cut is deep. We're going to the clinic." "I can't afford—" "Did anyone ask about money?" Doc's voice was gruff but kind. "Clinic's free for friends. And sweetheart, after what you and your little girl went through tonight, your family." Lily looked up from her plate of pie. "Does that mean we can stay?" The question hung in the air. Bear pulled up a chair and sat across from Sarah, close enough to talk quietly, far enough to give her space. "Your daughter's asking a good question. What's your plan?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "Plan I've been running for 8 months. I had a job, an apartment. I thought we were finally safe. Now everything's destroyed again." "You've got options. David's going to make bail. He always does. His friends will get him out by morning and then he'll come back. He always comes back." "Not this time." Sarah met Bear's eyes. "You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of." "No, but he doesn't know what we're capable of either." Bear leaned forward. "Listen to me, Sarah. Whatever happens next, whatever Mercer tries, you're not alone anymore. You've got 25 brothers who made a promise tonight. We don't break promises. Why, you don't know me. You don't know Lily. Why would you risk anything for strangers? Bear was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed. Because 30 years ago, I was that little girl. Different circumstances, same terror, and nobody came to help. Nobody kicked down the door. Nobody stood between me and the monster. He paused. I swore if I ever had the chance to be the person who showed up, I'd take it, every single time. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm so scared. I know, but scared doesn't mean alone, not anymore. Lily climbed down from her seat and walked over to Bear. Without hesitation, she climbed into his lap and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Thank you for saving my mommy, she said into his shoulder. You're like a guardian angel, but bigger. Bear felt something shift inside him, something he thought had died in the desert years ago. You're welcome, sweetheart, and I'm not going anywhere. 3 hours later, the tavern had quieted down. Most of the club had gone home, but Bear had set up rotating watches. 2 men at Sarah's apartment at all times. 2 more patrolling the streets. Ghost was working his old FBI contacts, digging into David Mercer's background. It's worse than we thought, Ghost said, sliding into the booth across from Bear. Sarah and Lily had finally fallen asleep in the back room. Mercer wasn't just dirty. He was connected to a trafficking ring operating out of Arizona. Drugs, girls, the whole package. Why isn't he in prison? Because the key witness disappeared, along with 3 others who were going to testify. Ghost's face was grim. Bear, we're not dealing with some abusive ex-boyfriend. We're dealing with someone who has resources, money, friends in high places. If he wants Sarah and Lily gone, he has the means to make it happen. Then we make sure it doesn't happen. How? We can't watch them forever. We can't fight an organization with connections across 3 states. Watch me. Ghost shook his head. This isn't Afghanistan, Bear. We can't just eliminate the threat and move on. There are rules. Rules. Bear's voice was bitter. Rules that let him walk free after beating women. Rules that made witnesses disappear. Those rules, I'm not saying the system is perfect. The system is broken. Has been for years, but you know what isn't broken us. This club. What we do when someone asks us for help. Bear stood up and walked to the window. The street outside was dark and quiet, but he could feel something out there. Something watching. Waiting. David Mercer made a mistake tonight. He came into our town. He hurt a woman under our protection, and he made a promise to come back. Bear turned to face Ghost. We're going to make sure that when he does, we're ready. And if his friends come with him, then we'll be ready for them too. The phone on the bar rang. Wrench answered it, listened for a moment, then looked up with a pale face. Bear, that was Doc at the clinic. Someone just tried to break into Sarah's apartment. 2 men in a black SUV. They ran when they saw our guys. Bear grabbed his keys. They're not wasting any time, Ghost said. Neither are we. As they headed for the door, Lily's small voice stopped them. Bear. She was standing in the doorway of the back room, clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. Her eyes were heavy with sleep, but full of fear. Are the bad men coming back? Bear knelt down in front of her. Maybe. But you know what, sweetheart? It doesn't matter how many bad men come. Because I made you a promise, and I never break my promises. Cross your heart. Bear made the gesture solemnly. Cross my heart. Lily threw her arms around his neck one more time. I'm not scared when you're here. You make the scared go away. Bear held her small body close, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. He'd carried that weight before, in the desert, in the jungle, in the countless battles he'd fought and survived. But this was different. This was personal. "Go back to sleep, little darling. I'll be right outside. Nothing's going to hurt you or your mama. Not while I'm breathing." He set her down gently and watched her walk back to her mother's side. Then he turned and headed into the night. The first battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. The black SUV was gone by the time Bear and Ghost reached Sarah's apartment. Wrench and Preacher stood in the parking lot, their faces tight with anger. "2 of them," Wrench reported. "Masks. Tried the back window. Ran when they saw us coming. License plate, mud covered. Professional job." Bear's jaw clenched. "They're testing us. Seeing how fast we respond." "They got their answer," Ghost said. "Question is, what's their next move?" The answer came 47 hours later. Bear was at the Iron Horse when Ghost burst through the doors, his phone clutched in his hand. "He made bail." "What?" "David Mercer. Posted an hour ago. $50,000 cash. Judge Harriman signed the release." Bear slammed his fist on the bar. "Harriman. The same judge who dismissed those assault charges in Arizona. The same." "Bear, this goes deeper than we thought. Mercer's got people everywhere. Judges, cops, politicians." "Where is he now?" "That's the problem. Nobody knows. He walked out of county lockup and disappeared." Sarah. Bear was on his bike before Ghost finished talking. The ride to her temporary housing took 7 minutes. It felt like 7 hours. He found her standing in the kitchen of the small, safe house, Lily asleep on the couch. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. "You heard," Bear said. "Sheriff Torres called." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "She said they're looking for him. She said to stay inside. She said..." Her voice broke. "She said the same things they always say. And then he always finds me. Not this time. You keep saying that. Everyone keeps saying that." Sarah turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Do you know how many times I've heard those words from cops, from lawyers, from social workers? We'll keep you safe. He can't hurt you anymore. Just trust the system." "I'm not the system." "Then what are you, some biker who decided to play hero? You don't know what you're dealing with, Bear. David has friends, dangerous friends. People who make problems disappear." "I've dealt with dangerous people my whole life. Not like this. Not like him." Sarah grabbed his arm. "The last person who tried to help me was a prosecutor in Phoenix. She was building a case, had witnesses, evidence, everything." "What happened to her?" "Car accident. Single vehicle. No witnesses." Sarah's grip tightened. "The 2 people who were going to testify, one moved to Mexico overnight. The other one just vanished. Nobody ever found her." Bear felt the weight of her words settle into his chest. "You're telling me to walk away?" "I'm telling you to understand what you're getting into, Asum. This isn't some bar fight you can win with fists. These people kill, they destroy, and they never ever stop." Bear covered her hand with his own. "Sarah, look at me." She raised her tear-stained eyes to meet his. "I spent 3 tours in Afghanistan watching good people die because someone decided they weren't worth protecting. I came home with nightmares that still wake me up screaming. I built this club from broken men who needed purpose, who needed family." He paused. Every one of us knows what it feels like to be abandoned, to be written off, to be told we don't matter. Bear, your daughter ran into a bar full of outlaws and begged for help. She trusted us when she had no reason to. That trust means something. It means everything. And if they kill you, if they kill your friends, how am I supposed to live with that? You won't have to, because I'm not going to let them win. The first threatening message arrived the next morning. Ghost found it taped to the door of the Iron Horse. A photograph of Lily walking to school taken from across the street. On the back, 4 words written in red marker. She's pretty. For now. Bear stared at the photo, his hands trembling with rage. When was this taken? Yesterday morning, 8:15. She was with Doc walking from the safe house. They know where she is. They know everything. Ghost's voice was grim. Bear, we need to move them, somewhere more secure. We're a bunker, a military base. These people have connections everywhere. Running doesn't work. Sarah's been running for 8 months. Then what do we do? Bear looked at the photograph again. Lily's innocent smile, her small hand reaching up to hold Doc's fingers as they crossed the street. We stop running. We start fighting. The steel wolves went into full protection mode. Bear assigned 2 men to Sarah and Lily around the clock. Rotating shifts, different vehicles. Never the same route twice. The club's compound became their base of operations, fortified with cameras and motion sensors that Ghost had acquired through channels he didn't discuss. The community's reaction was immediate and hostile. Mrs. Patterson from Maple Creek Road stopped Sarah at the grocery store. I've lived in Ridgewater for 40 years. We've never had motorcycle gangs setting up camp in our neighborhood. They're protecting my daughter. From what? Your own poor choices. Mrs. Patterson's voice dripped with judgment. Maybe if you hadn't gotten involved with dangerous men. I'm sorry. Have we met? Sarah's voice went cold. Do you know anything about my life? About what I've survived? I know that since you arrived, we've had police cars on our street every night. We've had those bikers roaming around like they own the place. Property values are already dropping. Bear appeared at Sarah's side. His presence alone made Mrs. Patterson take 2 steps backward. Problem here. No problem. Mrs. Patterson gathered her groceries quickly. Just expressing my concerns as a longtime resident. Your concerns are noted. Now leave. Mrs. Patterson hurried away, glancing back over her shoulder with a mixture of fear and indignation. You didn't have to do that, Sarah said quietly. Yes, I did. She's not wrong, you know. People are scared. They see your club and they think, I know what they think. They've been thinking it my whole life. Bear guided her toward the exit. Doesn't matter what they think. Matters what they do. And right now what they need to do is stay out of our way. 3 days later, everything changed. Bear was at the compound reviewing security footage when Wrench burst in. We've got a visitor, old lady, walked right up to the front gate carrying a pie. A pie. Apple from the smell of it. Says her name is Dorothy Hayes. Says she needs to speak with whoever's in charge. Bear frowned. Dorothy Hayes. The name sounded familiar. He found her standing at the gate, a small woman in her late 70s with silver hair and determined eyes. In her hands, she held a covered dish that smelled like heaven. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Kovacs, or should I call you Bear? She didn't wait for an answer. I'm Dorothy. I live 3 houses down from that poor woman's apartment, the one your friends have been watching. And you're here because I baked this pie and nobody's going to eat it, and because I'm 78 years old and I've learned to recognize good people when I see them. She thrust the dish toward him. Take it. It's my grandmother's recipe, won a blue ribbon at the state fair in 1962. Bear accepted the pie, confused. Mrs. Hayes, I appreciate the gesture, but do you know what I saw that night, when all of you came roaring down the street like the cavalry? Dorothy's eyes softened. I saw 25 men drop everything to help a little girl they'd never met. I saw you kick down a door to save a woman from a monster. I saw your friends form a protective wall around that family like they were guarding the president. We did what anyone should do. No. You did what nobody does anymore. You got involved." Dorothy reached up and patted his cheek, a gesture so maternal it caught him off guard. "My husband was in Korea. He used to say that you can't judge a man by his uniform. You judge him by his actions. Your actions told me everything I needed to know." Bear felt something loosen in his chest. "Thank you, Mrs. Hayes." "Dorothy, and don't thank me yet. I'm about to make your life more complicated." She smiled. "I've organized a neighborhood meeting for tomorrow night. You're going to speak to them. You're going to explain what you're doing and why. And I'm going to make sure they listen." "Mrs. Dorothy, these people don't want to hear from me. These people are scared. Scared people do stupid things unless someone shows them a better way." She turned and started walking back toward the street. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Community Center on Pine Street. Don't be late. And bring more of your friends. The handsome one with the kind eyes. The women will love him." Bear watched her go, shaking his head in disbelief. "Did that just happen?" Wrench asked from behind him. "Yeah, I think we just got adopted by someone's grandmother." The community meeting was standing room only. Bear stood at the front of the room with Ghost Wrench and Doc flanking him. The faces staring back at him ranged from curious to hostile. Mrs. Patterson sat in the front row, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Thank you for coming." Bear's voice was steady. "I know most of you have questions, maybe concerns. I'm here to answer them as honestly as I can. Why don't you start by explaining why a motorcycle gang has turned our neighborhood into a war zone?" A man in the back row stood up. "My kids are scared to play outside." "We're not a gang. We're a club. Veterans mostly. Men who served this country and came home to find nobody waiting for them." "That doesn't answer my question." "No, it doesn't." Bear took a breath. "A woman and her daughter came to Ridgewater to escape a dangerous man. He found them. He broke into their home and assaulted her while her 6-year-old daughter watched. That little girl ran for help. She found us. We responded. So call the police like normal people. The police came. They arrested him. He made bail 2 days later because he has connections. Judges, lawyers, people who make problems disappear." Bear paused. "Since then, we've intercepted 2 attempts to break into their safe house. We've found surveillance photographs of the little girl walking to school. We've received death threats." The room went quiet. "That woman and her daughter are still alive because we're watching them. If we leave, they won't be." Mrs. Patterson spoke up. "And how long is this supposed to continue? How long do we have to live with your people on our streets until the threat is eliminated? And how do you propose to do that?" Bear looked at Ghost, who stepped forward. "David Mercer isn't just a domestic abuser. He's connected to organized crime, drug trafficking, human trafficking. We're working with Sheriff Torres to build a case, a real case, one that will put him and his associates away permanently." "Working with the sheriff?" Someone laughed. "Since when do bikers work with cops? Since a little girl asked us to save her mother." Bear's voice cut through the skepticism. "Look, I understand why you're afraid of us. I've spent my whole life watching people cross the street when they see me coming. But I'm asking you to look past the leather and the tattoos. Look at what we're actually doing." "And what exactly are you doing?" "Protecting someone who can't protect herself. The same thing any of you would do if it was your daughter. Your granddaughter." Dorothy Hayes stood up from her seat in the 3rd row. "I've heard enough complaints. Now I want to hear solutions." She looked around the room. "These men helped when nobody else would. Instead of complaining, maybe we should be asking how we can help them." "Help them," Mrs. Patterson sputtered. "Help them protect one of our own, because that's what Sarah Chen is now. She lives here. Her daughter goes to our school. That makes them ours." Dorothy's voice hardened. "And in my day, We protected our own. The mood in the room shifted. Not completely, but enough. 2 hours later, Bear left the community center with something he hadn't expected. Allies. The drive-by happened 4 nights later. Bear was at the safe house going over security protocols with Sarah when the first shot shattered the front window. Glass exploded across the living room. Sarah screamed. Bear threw himself over Lily, covering her small body with his own, as 2 more shots punched through the walls, then tires squealing, an engine roaring. Silence. "Stay down," Bear shouted. "Ghost status. Black SUV headed east on Maple Wrench is pursuing." Bear lifted his head carefully. Sarah was pressed against the wall, pale and shaking, but unharmed. Lily was crying beneath him. "Is everyone okay?" "Sarah, are you hit?" No, I don't think so. Lily, I'm okay, Mama." Lily's voice was small but steady. "Bear protected me." Bear helped them both to their feet, checking them for injuries. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, from rage. "We need to move, now." Ghost appeared in the doorway. "Wrench lost them. They had a secondary vehicle waiting 2 blocks away. Professional switch." "Professional?" Bear's voice was deadly quiet. "They're escalating." "They're trying to scare you off," Sarah said. "They want to show you what they're capable of." "They just showed me they're willing to shoot at a house with a 6-year-old inside." Bear pulled out his phone. "This changes everything." Sheriff Torres arrived within 20 minutes. She examined the bullet holes, spoke with witnesses, and finally pulled Bear aside. "We need to talk. Privately." They walked to the edge of the parking lot, away from the flashing lights and growing crowd. "I've been building a case against David Mercer for 3 months, Torres said quietly. "Since before Sarah Chen arrived in Ridgewater." "You knew about him?" "I knew there was a network operating in this region, drugs coming up from the border, money flowing to corrupt officials, young women disappearing." Her jaw tightened. "Mercer's name came up 6 weeks ago. Low-level connection, I thought. Now I'm not so sure." "What do you need?" "Evidence. Real evidence. The kind that can survive in court with good lawyers attacking it from every angle." Torres met his eyes. "And I need people I can trust. People who aren't on anyone's payroll. You're asking a motorcycle club to help with a law enforcement investigation. I'm asking veterans who understand what's at stake to help me take down people who hurt children." Torres paused. "Can you do that? Can you work within the system instead of around it?" Bear thought about Sarah's words. About the prosecutor who died in a car accident. The witnesses who disappeared. "What exactly did you have in mind?" Torres pulled out a small device. A wire transmitter. "I want you to wear this when you confront Mercer. Get him talking. Get him on tape, admitting what he's done and what he's planning. Give me something I can use. And if he doesn't cooperate, then we find another way, but this way keeps everyone alive, including you." Bear took the device, feeling its weight in his palm. "When, soon, we've got intelligence that Mercer's meeting with his partners tomorrow night. After that, they'll make their move. We need to act first." As Torres walked away, Bear looked back at the safe house. Sarah stood in the doorway, Lily in her arms, both of them watching him with eyes full of trust. Trust he couldn't afford to break. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Last warning. Walk away or bury them both." Bear deleted the message and walked back toward his family, because that's what they'd become, his family, and nobody threatened his family and lived to brag about it. Bear couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his apartment at 3 a.m, staring at the wire transmitter Torres had given him. Such a small thing. A button-sized piece of technology that could bring down an entire criminal network, or get him killed. His military dog tags hung around his neck, the metal warm against his chest. He'd worn them every day since Vietnam, a reminder of who he'd been, who he'd become, who he was still trying to be. His phone buzzed. Sarah. Can't sleep either. No, Lily had another nightmare. She keeps asking when the bad men will go away. What do you tell her? Soon. I tell her soon. Sarah's voice cracked. But I don't know if I believe it anymore. Bear closed his eyes. I'm going to end this, Sarah, tomorrow night. How? Torres has a plan. I confront David, get him talking, get evidence on tape. You're going to walk into a room with a man who wants you dead. It's the only way to stop this legally, the right way. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Bear, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. When I left David the first time, I thought I was being brave. I packed my things. I took Lily. I ran. She took a shaky breath. But I wasn't brave. I was just scared. Scared of what he'd do if I stayed. Scared of what he'd do if I left. That's still brave, Sarah. No. Brave is what you're doing. Standing up when you could walk away. Fighting for people you barely know. Her voice softened. I've never had anyone fight for me before. Not like this. You do now. I know. That's what scares me. She paused. Promise me something. Anything. Come back. Whatever happens tomorrow, come back to us. Bear gripped the phone tighter. I promise. He meant it. But he also knew that some promises were easier to make than to keep. The next morning, Ghost arrived at Bear's apartment with news that made his blood freeze. We've got a problem. A big one. What happened? Remember that prosecutor Sarah mentioned, the one who died in a car accident? Yeah, I pulled the file, dug into the investigation. Ghost's face was pale. It wasn't an accident, Bear. There was a witness, a mechanic who worked on her car 2 days before the crash. He reported that someone had been tampering with the brake lines. What happened to him? Dead, heart attack, 3 weeks after he filed the report. Bear felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. How many people has Mercer killed? Directly, maybe 2 or 3. But his organization? My contact at the FBI estimates at least 15 disappearances connected to the network over the past 5 years. Witnesses, competitors, anyone who got in their way. And Torres thinks a wire is going to stop them. Torres doesn't know how deep this goes. Nobody does. Ghost sat down heavily. Bear, I'm not sure we should do this. Not tomorrow. Not until we know more. We don't have time to know more. Every day we wait is another day they could grab Sarah or Lily. And if they grab you instead, if they find the wire, then you come get me. And if I can't... Bear looked at his oldest friend, the man who'd saved his life in Afghanistan, who'd walked away from a career to find something real, who'd stood beside him through every fight and every failure. Then you make sure Sarah and Lily get somewhere safe. You take the evidence we have, and you burn these people to the ground. Ghost shook his head. I don't like it. You don't have to like it. You just have to be ready. The call came at 2:15 that afternoon. Bear was at the compound going over the plan one more time when Wrench burst through the door, his face white with terror. They got her. Bear's heart stopped. Sarah. Lily. She was at school. Fire drill. Someone grabbed her in the confusion. The world tilted. Bear grabbed the table to keep from falling. How we had Doc watching her. Doc's at the hospital. Someone hit him from behind. Fractured skull. He never saw them coming. Where's Sarah? On her way here. Ghost is bringing her. Bear forced himself to breathe, to think, to function. Security footage. School's pulling it now. Witnesses. Kids saw a man in a mask, black van, no plates. Sarah burst through the door, Ghost right behind her. Her face was a mask of pure terror. Where is she? Where's my baby? We're going to find her. Bear grabbed her shoulders. Look at me. We're going to find her. He has her. David has my daughter. Sarah's voice broke into sobs. He's going to hurt her. He's not going to do anything, because I'm going to get her back. Bear's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it. Hello, Bear. David Mercer's voice was smooth, confident. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Now I have something that belongs to you. If you touch her, relax. She's fine. For now. She's actually been asking about you. Where's Bear? Bear will save me. It's really quite touching. What do you want? What I've always wanted. My family back. Sarah and Lily, both of them. That's not going to happen. No. Then I guess little Lily doesn't need all 10 fingers. Let's start with the pinky. She's young. She'll adapt. Sarah screamed and lunged for the phone. Bear held her back. Listen to me very carefully, Mercer. If you hurt that child, there's no place on earth you can hide. I will find you, and I will end you. David laughed. You sound just like the others. The prosecutor, the witnesses. They all talked tough at first. His voice hardened. Here's how this works. You bring Sarah to the old lumber mill on Route 17. Alone. No police, no bikers, just you and her. And if I do, then everyone walks away. Lily goes back to school. You go back to your sad little bar. And Sarah comes home where she belongs. You expect me to believe that? I don't care what you believe. I care about results. David paused. You have 2 hours. After that, I start taking pieces off your little friend, starting with the parts she won't miss. The line went dead. Sarah collapsed against Bear, sobbing. Oh God. Oh God. My baby. Bear held her tight, his mind racing. 2 hours. The lumber mill. A trap, obviously. But what choice did he have? I'm going, Sarah said, suddenly pulling back. I'll go to him. I'll do whatever he wants. Just get Lily back. No. She's my daughter. And walking into that trap won't save her. It'll just give him 2 hostages instead of 1. Ghost stepped forward. Bear's right. We need a plan. We don't have time for a plan. We make time. Bear forced himself to focus. Ghost, call Torres. Tell her what's happening. If we bring in the cops, I know, but we need backup. Real backup. And we need to know what we're walking into. Sheriff Torres arrived 20 minutes later with 4 unmarked vehicles. Her face was grim. The lumber mill, abandoned for 6 years. Multiple entry points, easy to defend, hard to assault. How many men does Mercer have? My sources say at least 8, plus the Brennan brothers. These aren't amateurs, Bear. They're professional criminals who've killed before. So have I. Torres studied him for a long moment. We're still doing the wire. You're still getting him on tape. But now we're adding extraction protocols. My people will be positioned within 300 yards. The moment we hear Lily's location, we move. And if he doesn't give up her location, then we improvise. Bear looked at Sarah. Her face was tear-stained but determined. I'm coming with you, she said. No. He said to bring me. If I'm not there, he'll know something's wrong. Sarah, she's my daughter, Bear. I'm not staying behind while you risk your life for her. Sarah's voice hardened. I've been running and hiding for 8 months. I'm done running. Bear saw something in her eyes that he recognized. The same look he'd seen in soldiers before they went into battle. Fear transformed into resolve. "Okay, but you stay behind me, no matter what happens." "Deal." The ride to the lumber mill took 17 minutes. Bear felt every second like a countdown to disaster. Sarah sat behind him on the bike, her arms wrapped tight around his waist. He could feel her trembling, but she didn't let go. Ghost and the club followed at a distance, spreading out to cover the approaches. Torres and her people took positions in the woods surrounding the property. Bear stopped at the edge of the tree line. The mill loomed ahead, dark and silent. "Remember," Torres's voice crackled in his earpiece, "we need him to admit to the kidnapping, to the trafficking, to the murders. The more he talks, the stronger our case." "Understood. And Bear, bring that little girl home." He killed the engine and helped Sarah off the bike. "Ready?" "No." She took his hand. "But let's do it anyway." They walked toward the mill together. The door opened before they reached it. David Mercer stood in the entrance, a smile on his face that made Bear want to tear him apart. "Right on time. I'm impressed." "Where's Lily?" "Safe, for now." David's eyes moved to Sarah. "Hello, sweetheart. You look good. Being a fugitive suits you." "Where's my daughter, David? All in good time. First we need to have a conversation." He stepped aside. "Come in, both of you." And Bear kept Sarah behind him as they entered. The interior of the mill was exactly what he'd expected. Open space, multiple levels, plenty of places for armed men to hide. He counted 8 figures positioned around the perimeter, plus 2 more near a door at the far end of the building. The Brennan brothers, probably. "Nice setup," Bear said. "You always did like an audience." "I like insurance. There's a difference." David circled them slowly. "So, the famous Bear, the biker who thinks he's a hero. Do you know what I see when I look at you? I'm sure you're going to tell me. I see a thug playing dress-up, a man with a violent past pretending to be something better." David stopped in front of Sarah. "Sound familiar? That's what I used to tell Sarah all the time. You can't escape what you are. You don't know anything about what I am." "Don't I? 3 tours in Afghanistan, honorable discharge. But what they don't put in the file is the village." David's smile widened. "The one you burned to the ground because you thought they were harboring insurgents." Bear felt his blood go cold. "Didn't think I knew about that, did you? I have friends everywhere, Bear. Friends who find things. Secrets. Weaknesses." David leaned closer. "You killed 17 civilians that day. Women. Children. And then you spent the next 20 years pretending to be one of the good guys. That was war. This is war too. And you're losing." Sarah stepped forward. "Where is Lily, David? You said you'd give her back." "I said she was safe. I didn't say anything about giving her back." David grabbed Sarah's arm. "You're mine, Sarah. You've always been mine. And Lily is mine too. That's how this works." "Let go of me. Make me." Bear moved fast. His hand closed around David's wrist, twisting until he released Sarah. "Touch her again and I'll break every bone in your body." The click of multiple weapons being raised echoed through the mill. "Careful, hero." David rubbed his wrist. "My friends are watching, and they're very protective." "Your friends?" Bear forced himself to stay calm. The wire was recording everything. He needed more. "You mean the trafficking network, the drugs, the politicians you've paid off?" David laughed. "You're trying to get me to incriminate myself. That's cute." "I'm trying to understand how a former deputy sheriff becomes a monster." "Monster." David's face darkened. "I'm a businessman. I provide services that people want. Girls for men with specific tastes. Chemicals for people who need escape. Protection for those who can afford it. He spread his arms wide. This is America, Bear. Everything is for sale. Even justice. Including the prosecutor who was building a case against you, the witnesses who disappeared. Casualties of commerce. Nothing personal. And Lily, a 6-year-old girl, is that just business too? David's mask slipped. For just a moment, Bear saw the rage underneath. Lily is leverage, insurance, something to make sure Sarah remembers who she belongs to. He grabbed Sarah again, pulling her close. Tell him, sweetheart. Tell him what happens to people who try to take what's mine. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. He kills them. That's right. I kill them. Slowly, painfully, while their loved ones watch. David's eyes locked onto Bear. Is that what you want, to watch Sarah die because you couldn't mind your own business? Let the girl go. Let them both go. This is between you and me. No. This is between me and everyone who's ever disrespected me, who's ever tried to take what I've built. David shoved Sarah toward one of his men. Take her upstairs. Our friend here needs a lesson in consequences. David, no. Shut up! He backhanded her across the face. You'll speak when I tell you to speak. Bear lunged forward. 2 men grabbed him from behind. A third drove a fist into his stomach. Hold him. David walked over slowly. Do you know what I'm going to do, Bear? I'm going to make you watch while my friends have some fun with Sarah. Then I'm going to bring Lily out and let her see what's left of her mother. And then only then will I let you die. Bear struggled against the hands holding him. Mercer. David pulled out a knife. The same hunting knife from Sarah's apartment. Any last words? The warehouse door exploded inward. Flashbang grenades. Gunfire. Screaming. Bear dropped to the ground as chaos erupted around him. He could hear Torres shouting commands. Could see flashlight beams cutting through the smoke. One of the men holding him went down. The other released him and ran. Bear! Ghost's voice cut through the noise. Lily's in the back, 2nd floor. Bear was already moving. Up the stairs, down a hallway. Toward the sound of a child crying, he kicked the door open. Lily was huddled in the corner, her hands bound, tears streaming down her face. One of the Brennan brothers stood over her, a gun in his hand. Stop right there. The man pressed the barrel against Lily's head. One more step, and she's dead. Bear froze. Smart. Brennan smiled. Now get on your knees. Slowly. Bear lowered himself to the ground. His eyes never left Lily's face. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here. Bear, I'm scared. I know. But remember what I told you. Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Her voice was tiny, but steady. That's right. And sometimes scared people do the bravest things. Brennan laughed. Touching. But it won't save her. No. Bear's voice went cold. But this will. He moved. 20 years of combat training. 3 tours of war. Countless fights where hesitation meant death. All of it compressed into 2 seconds. His hand knocked the gun aside. His body drove forward. His fist connected with Brennan's jaw with enough force to drop him instantly. The gun clattered to the floor. Bear kicked it away and scooped Lily into his arms. I've got you. I've got you. I knew you'd come. Lily buried her face in his shoulder. I knew you'd save me. Always, sweetheart. Always. He carried her out of the room and down the stairs. Ghost met him at the bottom. Sarah, she's safe. Torres has her. Outside, the night was filled with flashing lights and sirens. David Mercer was being loaded into a police car, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. "This isn't over," he screamed. "You think you've won. Your friends are in custody," Torres said flatly. "All of them, along with enough evidence to put you away for 3 lifetimes." Sarah ran toward them, her face streaked with tears. "Lily. Oh God, Lily. Mama." Lily reached for her mother. "Mama Bear saved me, just like he promised." Sarah took her daughter, holding her so tight it seemed like she'd never let go. "Thank you." She looked at Bear with eyes full of something he couldn't name. "Thank you." Bear touched Lily's hair gently. "I made a promise, remember?" "Cross your heart," Lily whispered. "Cross my heart." As they stood there in the chaos of the aftermath, Bear felt something break open inside him. Something he'd kept locked away since that village in Afghanistan. Since the nightmares started. Since he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve peace or happiness or family. He'd spent 30 years running from his demons. Tonight, he'd finally stopped running. Ghost appeared at his side. "It's over." Bear looked at Sarah and Lily wrapped in each other's arms. "No," he said quietly. "It's just beginning." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Bear sat in the courtroom every single day watching as the evidence mounted against David Mercer. The wire recordings, the surveillance footage, the testimony of survivors who'd finally found the courage to speak. Sarah took the stand on the 4th day. Her voice shook at first, but it grew stronger with every word. "He told me nobody would believe me. He said he owned judges and lawyers and cops. He said I was nothing." She looked directly at David. "But I'm not nothing. And neither are the other women he hurt." The prosecutor approached. "Mrs. Chen, can you describe the night of the kidnapping?" "My daughter was taken from her school, a place where she was supposed to be safe." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I'd never see her again. I thought David would kill her just to punish me for running." "And what happened next?" "Men who everyone called dangerous came to save us. Men who society had written off as criminals. They risked their lives for a woman and child they barely knew." Sarah looked at Bear. "They showed me what real strength looks like, what real protection means." David's lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled him. When Sarah stepped down from the stand, she walked straight to Bear and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "You did amazing." "I was terrified." "I know. But you did it anyway. That's courage." Lily testified via video from a separate room too young to face her abuser directly. Her small voice filled the courtroom as she described what happened. "The bad man took me from school. He said Mama had to come back or he'd hurt me." She paused. "But Bear found me. He always finds me when I'm scared." "How did Bear find you, Lily?" "He made a promise. Cross his heart. And Bear never breaks promises." Several jurors wiped their eyes. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon. Guilty. All counts. Kidnapping. Assault. Trafficking. Conspiracy to commit murder. Witness intimidation. David Mercer stood motionless as the judge read 35 years without possibility of parole. His face showed nothing. But Bear saw his hands trembling at his sides. "Mr. Mercer, do you have anything to say?" David turned slowly and locked eyes with Bear. "This isn't over." "Yes." Bear's voice was calm. "Certain. It is." 2 days later, Sheriff Torres called with more news. "Judge Harriman resigned this morning. FBI's launching an investigation into his connections to the trafficking network." "What about the others?" 3 county officials arrested. 2 more under investigation. The whole thing is unraveling." Torres paused. Bear, you did something remarkable. You exposed a network that's been operating for over a decade. We did it together. No, you did it. You and your club. When everyone else looked the other way, you stood up. Her voice softened. I spent 20 years in law enforcement thinking I understood justice. You showed me I still had things to learn. Bear didn't know what to say. Compliments had never been his strong suit. What happens now? He asked. Now we rebuild. Clean house. Make sure something like this can never happen again in my county. Torres paused. And Bear, the mayor wants to see you. Something about a ceremony. A ceremony? Don't sound so surprised. Even outlaws become heroes sometimes. The town hall was packed. Bear stood with his brothers near the front of the room, uncomfortable in the spotlight, but unwilling to let them face it alone. Ghost. Wrench. Doc, his head still bandaged from the attack at Lily's school. Preacher. All of them wearing their leather vests like badges of honor. Mayor Catherine Brooks approached the microphone. 2 months ago, a little girl ran into a bar looking for help. What she found was something none of us expected. The mayor looked at the steel wolves. She found heroes. The applause started slowly, then built to a roar. These men answered a call that many of us would have ignored. They protected a family when the system failed. They stood against violence and corruption at great personal risk. Mayor Brooks held up a framed certificate. It is my honor to officially recognize the Steel Wolves Motorcycle Club as heroes of Ridgewater, and to declare this day, April 15th, as Heroes Day in our community. Bear stepped forward to accept the certificate. His hands were steadier than he expected. I'm not good at speeches, he said, his voice rough. Never have been. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But I want everyone here to understand something. We didn't do this for recognition or certificates or ceremonies. We did it because a child asked for help, because a mother was being hurt, because that's what people are supposed to do for each other. He looked at his brothers. Every man standing behind me has a story. Pain they've carried, mistakes they've made. But they showed up when it mattered. They put themselves in danger for strangers. That's what makes someone a hero. Not uniforms or badges, not fancy titles. Just showing up. But Sarah stood at the back of the room, Lily in her arms. Both of them were crying. Both of them were smiling. So thank you for this honor. But the real honor is knowing that Lily and Sarah are safe. That they have a future. That's all the recognition we'll ever need. The applause this time was deafening. Dorothy Hayes found Bear afterward, her eyes wet with tears. My Harold would have loved this, she said. He always said the best men are the ones who don't want to be heroes. They just do what needs doing and move on. He sounds like a wise man. He was the wisest man I ever knew. Dorothy took his hand. Until you. The transformation of Ridgewater happened gradually, then all at once. Wrench opened his motorcycle repair shop on Main Street. Within a month, he had more business than he could handle. Families who once crossed the street to avoid him now brought their cars for oil changes and tire rotations. Never thought I'd be fixing minivans, Wrench admitted to Bear one afternoon. But honest money feels different. Better. Doc started working at the community clinic 3 days a week. His medical skills honed in combat proved invaluable in a town that had been without a full-time physician for years. The irony isn't lost on me, Doc said. Spent 20 years patching up wounds I helped create. Now I'm actually healing people. Preacher launched a youth mentorship program at the community center. Troubled kids from broken homes found their way to him, drawn by his gentle manner and his refusal to judge. Everyone deserves a second chance, he told the parents who questioned his background. That includes the people giving the chances. Ghost's transformation was the most unexpected. He and Sheriff Torres had developed an unlikely partnership during the Mercer investigation. Strategy meetings turned into dinner conversations. Professional respect became something deeper. "You're kidding me," Bear said when Ghost told him. "I know. Trust me, I'm as surprised as you are." "Margaret Torres, the woman who tried to arrest you twice." "3 times, actually," Ghost smiled. "But who's counting what happened to never trust cops? What happened to never settle down?" Ghost looked toward the house where Sarah and Lily were waiting for Bear. "People change. That's the whole point, isn't it?" Bear couldn't argue with that. Sarah's Cafe opened on a warm Saturday morning in June. Second Chance's Cafe read the hand-painted sign above the door. Below it, smaller letters, "Where everyone belongs." The Iron Horse had invested the startup costs. Dorothy Hayes had contributed her grandmother's recipes. The entire town seemed to show up for opening day. "I can't believe this is real," Sarah said, surveying the packed dining room. "6 months ago, I was running for my life. Now I own a business." "You built this?" Bear wrapped his arm around her, every bit of it. "I had help. We all need help sometimes. The brave part is accepting it." Lily appeared at their side, wearing an apron that was 3 sizes too big for her. "Mama, Mrs. Dorothy says the apple pie is almost gone. Should I make more? Since when do you make pie? Mrs. Dorothy's been teaching me." Lily grinned. "She says I'm a natural." Sarah laughed. "Then I guess you'd better make more pie." As Lily ran off to the kitchen, Sarah leaned against Bear's shoulder. "She's healing. Really healing. The nightmares have stopped. She's laughing again. Making friends at school. Kids are resilient. It's more than that. She feels safe." Sarah looked up at him. "We both do. For the first time in years." Bear kissed her forehead. "Good. That's exactly how you should feel." The question had been burning in Bear's mind for weeks. He'd planned a dozen different scenarios. Romantic dinners, sunset walks, grand gestures that felt completely wrong for who they were. In the end, it happened simply. They were sitting on the porch of Sarah's small house, watching Lily catch fireflies in the backyard. The summer evening was warm. The sounds of the neighborhood were peaceful. Ordinary. Sarah. I've been thinking. That's dangerous." Bear smiled despite his nerves. "About us. About Lily. About what happens next." Sarah turned to look at him. "What about it? I spent 30 years convinced I didn't deserve happiness, that the things I'd done made me unworthy of peace, or family, or love." He took her hand. "You changed that, both of you." "Bear, let me finish. Please." He took a breath. "I'm not good at feelings, never have been. But I know what I feel when I look at you. When I see Lily smile. When I wake up in the morning and realize this is my life now." Sarah's eyes were glistening. "I want this forever. I want to be Lily's father. Really her father. I want to grow old with you and complain about my bad back and watch our grandchildren play in this yard." Bear reached into his pocket. "I want to be your husband." He opened the small box. A simple ring. Not expensive, but real. "Will you marry me?" Sarah was crying now. Happy tears, the kind that changed everything. "Yes. Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Bear slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Bear Mama." Lily came running across the yard, fireflies forgotten. "What happened? Why is Mama crying? Happy tears, sweetie. Sarah opened her arms. Bear asked me to marry him. Finally. Lily threw her arms around both of them. I've been waiting forever. Bear laughed. You knew? Of course I knew. Mrs. Dorothy told me weeks ago. She said you were being slow and needed encouragement. Lily pulled back with a serious expression. Does this mean I can call you Daddy now? The question hit Bear like a punch to the chest, but this time it didn't hurt. Only if you want to. I've wanted to forever. Lily hugged him tighter. You're my daddy now. My real daddy. The one I picked. Bear held them both close. His family. His future. Everything he never thought he'd have. Yeah, sweetheart. I'm your daddy now. The wedding took place on a perfect September afternoon. The Iron Horse Tavern had been transformed. Flowers everywhere. White chairs arranged in neat rows. The club's motorcycles lined up like an honor guard. Every member of the Steel Wolves stood at the front in cleaned-up leather and pressed shirts. Ghost served as best man. Dorothy Hayes sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. The town had turned out in full force. People who'd once feared the bikers now celebrated alongside them. Sheriff Torres sat next to the mayor. Mrs. Patterson, who'd complained loudest about the club's presence, had baked the wedding cake herself. Then Sarah appeared. She wore a simple white dress. No veil, no fancy jewelry, just herself, radiant and real. Lily walked beside her mother carrying a basket of flower petals and wearing the biggest smile Bear had ever seen. You look beautiful, Bear whispered when Sarah reached him. You clean up pretty good yourself. The minister, an old army chaplain who'd served with Bear in Afghanistan, began the ceremony. We gather today to witness the union of two people who've found each other against impossible odds, who've faced darkness and emerged into light, who've proven that love can grow in the most unlikely places. Bear held Sarah's hands, feeling them tremble slightly. Bear, your vows. I wrote something down, but I'm going to say what's in my heart instead. He looked into Sarah's eyes. I was broken when I met you. Carrying guilt I thought I'd never escape. You and Lily showed me that redemption isn't a destination. It's a choice, one I make every day when I wake up next to you. Sarah was crying again. So was half the audience. I promise to protect you. Not because you're weak, but because you matter. I promise to love Lily as my own because she already is. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes. Good days, bad days, everything in between. Bear's voice cracked. You saved me, Sarah. Now let me spend the rest of my life returning the favor. Sarah, your vows. Sarah took a breath. I spent years running, hiding, believing I didn't deserve safety or happiness. Then I met a man who kicked down doors and fought monsters and never once asked for anything in return. She squeezed Bear's hands. You showed me what love looks like, what family means, what home really is. I promise to be your partner, your equal, the person who catches you when you fall and celebrates when you rise. I promise to build a life with you that's worth fighting for. She smiled through her tears. You're my hero, Bear. But more than that, you're my home. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The chaplain smiled. You may kiss the bride. Bear pulled Sarah close and kissed her. The crowd erupted in cheers. Motorcycle engines roared in celebration. Lily squeezed between them, wrapping her arms around both. We're a family now, she announced. A real family, forever. Forever, Bear agreed. 3 weeks after the wedding, Bear stood in a different room facing a different judge. This time the stakes felt even higher. The adoption hearing had been scheduled for 10 o'clock. By 9:30, the courtroom was packed with Steelwolf's friends from town and Dorothy Hayes, who'd declared herself Lily's honorary grandmother. "This is more nerve-wracking than the wedding," Bear muttered to Ghost. "The wedding didn't involve a judge deciding your future?" "Thanks, that helps." "Anytime." Judge Patricia Coleman reviewed the paperwork carefully. She was known as fair, but thorough, someone who took family matters seriously. "Mr. Kovacs, you're petitioning to adopt Lily Chen, age 7, as your legal daughter. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And Mrs. Kovacs, you consent to this adoption?" Sarah nodded. "Completely." "Lily, can you come forward, please?" Lily walked to the front of the courtroom with more confidence than any 7-year-old should possess. She'd insisted on wearing her best dress, the one with the flowers that Sarah had bought for the wedding. "Lily, do you understand what's happening today?" "Yes, ma'am. Bear's going to be my daddy. For real this time." "For real this time." Judge Coleman smiled. "What do you mean? He's been my daddy in my heart since he saved me and Mama. But today, the papers will say so too." "And is this what you want?" Lily nodded vigorously. "More than anything." "Can you tell me why?" Lily thought for a moment. "Before Bear, I didn't know what safe felt like. I was always scared. Even when Mama tried to protect me, I knew the bad man might find us." The courtroom was silent. Then Bear came, and he kept his promises. He never yelled, he never hit. He never made me feel small. Lily looked at Bear. "He taught me that families aren't about blood. They're about people who choose to love you, even when it's hard." Bear felt tears streaming down his face. He didn't bother wiping them away. "He's my daddy," Lily continued. "The daddy I picked. The daddy who picked me back. And I want the whole world to know that we belong to each other." Judge Coleman removed her glasses and wiped her eyes. "In all my years on this bench, I've rarely heard such eloquent testimony." She looked at Bear. "Mr. Kovacs, you've been given a tremendous gift. A child's complete trust and love. Do you understand the weight of that responsibility?" "Yes, Your Honor. More than anything I've ever understood." "Then, by the authority vested in me by the state of Montana, I hereby approve the petition for adoption. Lily Chen is now legally and forever Lily Kovacs." She banged her gavel. Lily ran to Bear and leaped into his arms. "Daddy, it's real now. It's really real." Bear held his daughter close, feeling the last broken piece of himself finally click into place. "It's always been real, sweetheart. This just makes it official." Sarah joined them, wrapping her arms around both. Behind them, the Steel Wolves cheered. Dorothy Hayes sobbed into her handkerchief. Ghost clapped Bear on the shoulder with a grip that said everything words couldn't. "Congratulations, Daddy," Sarah whispered. Bear laughed through his tears. "Best title I've ever had." That night, the Iron Horse hosted the biggest celebration Ridgewater had ever seen. Music played. Food overflowed. The entire town seemed to squeeze into the tavern that had once been feared and avoided. Bear stood near the bar, watching his family mingle with his brothers, with neighbors, with friends they'd made along the way. Lily was teaching Dorothy Hayes how to do some dance she'd learned at school. Sarah was laughing at something Wrench said. Ghost appeared beside him. "Not bad for a bunch of outlaws." "Not bad at all." "You know what I was thinking about? Do I want to know?" That night when Lily burst through those doors, scared out of her mind, looking for help in the last place anyone would think to look. Ghost paused. What if we'd turned her away? What if we'd told her to find a cop instead? Bear thought about the question. Then we'd still be what everyone thought we were. Outlaws, criminals, men without purpose. And now, Bear looked at his family, his community, his home. Now we're exactly what we were always meant to be. 5 years changed everything. Bear stood at the window of Second Chance's cafe watching Lily walk home from school with her friends. She was 11 now, tall for her age, with her mother's dark hair and a confidence that still amazed him. "You're staring again," Sarah said, sliding her arms around his waist from behind. "Just thinking about how fast time goes." "Too fast." Sarah rested her chin on his shoulder. "Remember when she used to fit in one arm? Remember when she burst into the iron horse covered in dirt and tears? How could I forget? That was the night everything changed." Bear turned and kissed his wife. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of building something real. Sometimes he still woke up thinking it was all a dream. "Mom! Dad!" Lily burst through the cafe door, her backpack bouncing wildly. "It came. It finally came." She waved an envelope over her head like a victory flag. "What came, sweetheart?" "The letter from the Montana Academy of Science and Mathematics." Lily was practically vibrating with excitement. "I got in full scholarship. They want me—" Sarah let out a scream that made every customer in the cafe look up. She grabbed Lily and spun her around. "I knew it. I knew you could do it." Bear felt his chest swell with pride. His daughter. His brilliant, brave, incredible daughter. "Let me see that." Lily handed him the letter. He read every word twice just to make sure it was real. "Dear Miss Kovacs, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for admission to the Montana Academy of Science and Mathematics. Your application demonstrated exceptional promise, and your personal essay about community resilience and chosen family particularly impressed our selection committee." "They liked my essay, Dad," Lily beamed. "The one about you and Mom and the club, about how real heroes don't wear capes." Bear had to clear his throat before he could speak. "I'm proud of you, Lily. More than words can say. I learned from the best." That evening, the celebration moved to the Iron Horse. The entire Steel Wolves Club turned out, along with half of Ridgewater. Dorothy Hayes, now 83, but still sharp as a tack, had baked 3 apple pies for the occasion. "My honorary granddaughter going to the fancy science school." Dorothy pinched Lily's cheek. "Your grandfather would be so proud." "Which grandfather? I have 3 now." It was true. Dorothy's late husband, Harold, had been adopted into the family story. So had Bear's own father, who'd died when Bear was 4. And now Doc, who'd become something of a grandfather figure to every child in the club's extended family. "All of them," Dorothy said firmly. "Every single one." Ghost arrived with Sheriff Torres. They'd been married for 2 years now, a union that still made Bear shake his head in disbelief. The former FBI agent and the county sheriff. Stranger things had happened, he supposed. "Heard the news," Ghost said, clapping Bear on the shoulder. "Scholarship to the academy? Not bad for a kid who once needed rescuing." "She hasn't needed rescuing in a long time." "No. Now she does the rescuing." Ghost nodded toward the corner where Lily was talking animatedly with a group of younger kids. "I saw her break up a fight at the community center last week. Kid half her size was getting bullied. She walked right in and shut it down." "She gets that from her mother." "She gets that from you, Bear. Both of you." The party continued late into the night. Bear found himself standing outside the tavern, looking up at the stars when Wrench joined him. "Quite a journey," Wrench said. "What do you mean? 5 years ago we were outlaws. People crossed the street to avoid us. Now we're throwing scholarship parties and getting invitations to town council meetings. Times change. We changed. Wrench pulled out a cigarette, then put it back. He'd quit 2 years ago after his doctor warned him about his lungs. Sometimes I can't believe this is our life now. Legitimate businesses. Families. Respect. You miss the old days? Wrench was quiet for a moment. I miss the simplicity. Knowing who we were and what we stood for. Everything felt clearer when we were fighting against something. And now we're fighting for something. It's harder, more complicated, but better. Wrench looked at Bear. You gave us that. A purpose beyond survival. We gave it to each other. No, it was you. You could have walked away that night, could have told that little girl to find a cop, but you didn't, and everything that happened after flows from that choice. Bear thought about the weight of choices, how one decision in one moment could reshape everything that followed. I didn't know what I was starting. That's how the best things begin. Wrench headed back inside. Don't stay out too long. Your daughter's about to give a speech. Bear followed him in time to see Lily standing on a chair, tapping a glass for attention. Can everyone hear me? Her voice carried across the crowded room. I want to say something. The tavern fell quiet. 5 years ago, I was the most scared I'd ever been. A bad man had found us. He was hurting my mom. I didn't know what to do. Lily's voice was steady, mature beyond her years. So I ran. I ran to the first place I saw with lights on, and people inside. Bear felt Sarah take his hand. I burst through those doors, expecting to find someone who would call the police. Maybe give me a phone. Tell me where to go. Lily looked around the room at the faces of the steel wolves. Instead, I found a family. Doc wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Preacher bowed his head. These men didn't know me. They had no reason to help. But when I asked them to save my mother, they dropped everything. They roared through town like thunder. They kicked down doors and faced down guns. Lily's voice cracked slightly. They became my heroes. And then something amazing happened. They became part of our family. My dad. She pointed at Bear. My uncles. She gestured at the club. My grandmother. Dorothy blew her a kiss. My whole world grew because a group of men everyone feared turned out to be the best people I've ever known. Bear couldn't see through the tears in his eyes. I'm going to the Science Academy next year. I'm going to study engineering. And someday I'm going to come back to Ridgewater and build things that make this community even better. Lily raised her glass of apple juice. Because this is my home. These are my people. And I will spend my whole life making sure everyone knows that heroes don't always look the way you expect. The cheers that followed shook the walls. The 5th annual Heroes' Day celebration took place on a perfect April morning. Bear stood with his brothers on the platform in the town square, just as they had every year since Mayor Brooks created the holiday. But this year felt different, more significant somehow. Citizens of Ridgewater. Mayor Brooks began, "We gather today to honor the men and women who remind us what community truly means." The crowd was larger than ever. Families from neighboring towns had made the trip. News crews from the regional stations had set up cameras. The story of the Steel Wolves had spread far beyond Ridgewater's borders. 5 years ago, a group of motorcycle riders answered a child's cry for help. In doing so, they changed our town forever. The mayor gestured toward the club. Today, we celebrate not just that single act of courage, but everything that followed. Sheriff Torres stepped forward to present the annual Community Service Awards. The Steel Wolves Youth Mentorship Program has helped over 200 at-risk young people find direction and purpose. The Second Chances Employment Initiative has placed 43 formerly incarcerated individuals in stable jobs. The community protection volunteers have logged over 10,000 hours of neighborhood watch service. Bear accepted the award on behalf of the club, uncomfortable with the spotlight, as always. Thank you, but I want to be clear about something. He looked out at the faces in the crowd. We didn't do any of this alone. Every hour of service, every youth we mentored, every person we helped, it happened because this community chose to trust us, chose to see us as something more than our pasts. He found Sarah and Lily in the front row. Change is a two-way street. We changed, but you changed too. You gave us the chance to prove ourselves, to become the men we always wanted to be. Bear's voice grew thick with emotion. That's the real story here. Not outlaws becoming heroes, but a community learning to look past appearances and see the truth underneath. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, as the crowd mingled and the celebration continued, Bear found himself surrounded by people he never thought would speak to him. Mrs. Patterson, who'd once demanded the bikers leave her neighborhood, brought him a plate of homemade cookies. My grandson wants to join your mentorship program, she said. He's been struggling since his parents' divorce. I thought maybe spending time with men who've overcome hardship might help. Send him to the community center Tuesday evening. We'll take good care of him. I know you will. Mrs. Patterson patted his arm. I'm sorry for how I treated you at the beginning. I was afraid of what I didn't understand. We all were, Mrs. Patterson. That's how growth happens. The afternoon was winding down when Bear noticed a commotion near the edge of the square. A woman was arguing with a man near the parking lot. Her voice was high and frightened. The man's posture was aggressive, threatening. Bear saw him grab her arm roughly. His instincts activated immediately. Ghost. With me. They moved through the crowd quickly but calmly. No need to cause a panic. Is there a problem here? Bear kept his voice even. The man turned. Young mid-20s, the smell of alcohol on his breath. Mind your own business, old man. The lady seems upset. That makes it my business. She's my girlfriend. We're having a private conversation. Then have it privately, somewhere else, without grabbing her arm hard enough to leave bruises. The woman took the opportunity to step away, putting distance between herself and the man. Thank you, she whispered to Bear. He's been following me. I told him we were done, but he won't accept it. You don't have to explain. Bear positioned himself between her and her ex. Sir, I think it's time you left. Or what you'll call your biker gang to beat me up. No, I'll call Sheriff Torres, who's standing about 50 feet behind me, and she'll arrest you for harassment. Your choice. The man looked past Bear and saw Torres already approaching her, hand resting casually on her radio. This isn't worth it. He backed away, pointing at the woman. We're not done talking. Yes, you are. Bear's voice left no room for argument. The man left muttering curses under his breath. Are you okay? Bear asked the woman. I am now. Thank you. I didn't know what to do. He just showed up and started demanding I talk to him, and I was so scared. You're safe now. Sheriff Torres can help you file a report if you want. Make sure he stays away. Torres arrived and took over, guiding the woman toward the police station with gentle efficiency. Bear watched them go, his heart rate slowly returning to normal. Some things never change, Ghost observed, and some things shouldn't. Lily appeared at Bear's side. She'd seen the whole thing. Dad, that was amazing. You just walked right up and handled it. That's what we do, sweetheart. When someone needs help, we help. No hesitation. No excuses. Is that what you're going to teach me before I leave for school? Bear looked at his daughter, this young woman who'd grown from a terrified child into someone strong and capable and kind. I think you already know. I think you've known for years. That evening, the Kovacs family gathered on the porch of their home for dinner. Bear, Sarah, Lily, and Marcus Jr., who they called Little Mark. 4 years old, and already showing his father's stubborn streak. "Tell me the story again," Mark demanded, climbing into Bear's lap. "About when Lily was little and the bikers saved her." "Again, I've told you 100 times." "I like it. It's my favorite story." Bear looked at his family, his wife with her gentle smile, his daughter with her bright future, his son with his endless curiosity. "Okay, one more time." He settled Mark more comfortably. "Once upon a time, a little girl needed help. She was scared and alone and didn't know where to go." "But she found the bikers," Mark interrupted. "That's right. She found the bikers, and they could have turned her away, could have told her to find someone else. But they didn't. Because they were heroes. Because they chose to be heroes. That's the important part, Mark. Being a hero isn't about what you look like or what people think of you. It's about the choices you make when someone needs you. Like when I helped Tommy find his dog. Exactly like that." Sarah caught Bear's eye across the table. In her expression, he saw everything they'd built together. Every struggle. Every victory. Every moment of choosing love over fear. "What happens next in the story?" Mark asked. "Next, the bikers saved the little girl's mother. They fought the bad guys. They helped the police catch them. And then something wonderful happened. They became a family. They became a family. The bikers who everyone thought were dangerous turned out to be protectors. The town that was afraid of them learned to trust them. And the little girl grew up knowing that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up when you need them." And they lived happily ever after. Bear looked around the table, at Lily helping her mother clear the dishes, at the lights of Ridgewater twinkling in the distance, at the life he never thought he'd have. "They're still living it, buddy, every single day." Later that night, after the children were in bed, Bear sat alone on the porch. Sarah found him there, staring up at the stars. Deep thoughts. Just grateful ones. She sat beside him, leaning into his warmth. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Sarah asked. "Tell me." "That night at the tavern, when Lily burst through those doors, you didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. There was nothing to think about. A child needed help. But that's exactly it, Bear. Most people would have hesitated, would have calculated the risks, would have decided it wasn't their problem." Sarah took his hand. "You didn't. You saw a scared little girl and you moved. Everything else followed from that one choice. I just did what anyone should do." "No. You did what hardly anyone actually does. That's why we're here. That's why we have this life." Bear thought about all the moments that had led to this one. The violence of his past, the guilt he'd carried, the years of wandering without purpose, all of it building toward that single night when a child's cry for help became his reason for being. "I used to think I was broken beyond repair," he said quietly. "That the things I'd done in war made me unworthy of peace, of family, of love. And now I know that broken things can be rebuilt, that the past doesn't have to define the future, that redemption isn't something you earn once and keep forever. It's something you choose every day, with every decision, every action, every moment of reaching out instead of pulling back." Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. "Lily asked me something yesterday. She wanted to know what she should do if she ever sees someone who needs help at her new school. If she should get involved or call someone else." "What did you tell her?" "I told her to be like her father, to move first and think later, to trust her instincts and her heart." Sarah smiled. "I told her that the world needs more people who don't wait for permission to do the right thing." "She's going to be amazing." "She already is. She learned from the best." The next morning, something happened that brought the whole story full circle. Bear was opening the cafe when a boy burst through the front door. Maybe 8 years old, tears streaming down his face, breathing hard from running. "Please help. My mom fell in the river. She can't swim. Please." Bear was moving before the words finished leaving the boy's mouth. "Sarah, call 911. Get the club." He ran behind the boy down Main Street toward the sound of the rushing creek that cut through the edge of town. But he wasn't the first one there. Lily had been walking to school when she heard the commotion. She'd dropped her backpack and sprinted toward the water. By the time Bear arrived, she was already in the creek, fighting against the current, reaching for the struggling woman. "Lily, I've got her, Dad. I've got her." Bear plunged into the water beside his daughter. Together they pulled the woman to the bank, just as Ghost and Wrench arrived to help lift her out. "She's breathing," Lily said, checking the woman's pulse. "She's going to be okay." The boy threw himself at his mother, sobbing. "You saved her. You saved my mom." Lily, soaking wet and shivering, knelt down to the boy's level. "That's what we do here. When someone needs help, we help. No questions asked." Bear watched his daughter, this young woman who'd grown from a terrified child into someone brave enough to leap into a river without hesitation. The cycle was complete. The legacy continued. Later at the hospital, after the woman had been treated and reunited with her family, the boy approached Lily in the waiting room. "Are you a superhero?" Lily smiled. "No, I'm just someone who learned a long time ago that heroes aren't born. They're made by the choices they make when someone needs them. Like when you were little and the bikers saved you. You know that story. Everyone knows that story. My mom tells it to me all the time." Lily looked at Bear standing in the doorway with Sarah. "Then you know the most important part. The bikers didn't save me because they were special. They saved me because they saw a scared kid who needed help, and they decided to act. Anyone can do that, including you." The boy thought about this seriously. "So if I ever see someone who needs help, I should be like the bikers." "Be like whoever you want to be. Just don't wait for someone else to move first." That night, the whole family gathered at the Iron Horse for dinner. 5 years of tradition, 5 years of growth, 5 years of proving that the most unlikely heroes often make the biggest difference. Bear stood up to make a toast. "To Lily, who reminded us all today why we do what we do." To Lily. The club raised their glasses. Lily blushed but smiled. "To all of you," she said, "for teaching me that family is a choice, that home is where you make it, and that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right even when you're scared." She looked at Bear. "I used to think you saved me that night, Dad, but now I understand. We saved each other, and that's what real families do." Bear pulled his daughter into a hug. "I love you, Lily Kovacs." "I love you too, Dad." Outside the tavern, the motorcycles sat in their usual row. The town went about its evening business. Life in Ridgewater continued, peaceful and ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Sarah slipped her hand into Bear's. "Some stories don't have endings," she said quietly. Bear looked at his family, his brothers, his community, at the life that had grown from one moment of choice, one instant of courage, one little girl's desperate plea for help. "No," he agreed. "They just grow into something bigger, something worth fighting for, something worth protecting." He kissed his wife, hugged his children, and stepped out into the cool Montana evening. 35 years ago, he'd been a broken soldier with no purpose. 20 years ago, he'd been an outlaw running from his past. 10 years ago, he'd been a man searching for redemption he didn't think he deserved. Today, he was a husband, a father, a protector, a hero. Not because the world had called him one, because he'd chosen to become one. And that choice, that single decision to help a scared little girl on the worst night of her life, had changed everything. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for permission to matter. Bear had learned that the only permission you need is the one you give yourself. The permission to care, to act, to love, to protect. The permission to be exactly who you were always meant to be. And in a small town in Montana, where outlaws had become heroes, and heroes had become family that truth would echo through generations. Forever.